Hi, Misha here, and felt like it was time to do another Star Trek Starships look. This time at a new, not really special edition, I don't know what they call these, bonus editions, bonus issues, in Eaglemoss's official collection of die-cast models. This is one I have really been waiting on, the SS Conestoga from Star Trek Enterprise, specifically the episode Terra Nova. This was an early, maybe the first colonial ship that Earth launched, not even quite a decade after Zefram Cochrane's first warp flight. And while this was in the series, while it is canon, we only saw it on a computer display. This model just came in, and it has a boo-boo. I nearly didn't do this video, but I figured what the hey, it's not a big enough one to really kill it for the video. If you notice, the tip of the Bassard collector has the spike on it, kind of a la early Constitution. The right one is broken off. This may be one of the few still there, just the tip's broken off. I know because I found it in the box, meaning it happened in shipping. And to be fair, the post office did give this package a pretty rough handling during shipping. That's what you get for shipping during the holidays. And before anyone says anything, I called Eaglemoss that evening. They were extremely apologetic and said they would get a replacement out ASAP. In the past, I've had a couple of Eaglemoss come in where the glue didn't take. Say, for example, the saucer not being joined to the star drive on my Constitution class. I don't mind putting a dab of glue and repairing those, no problem. But when something's literally broken off, not just not glued, especially if something that tiny, even though I actually did find that little bitty piece, I don't know if any way to glue it on. So, with that in mind, I did ask them to send out a replacement. So, that will get here, and hopefully the mail will be a little gentler to it now that it's January. But I don't think that keeps me from doing a kind of a look at this model and talk about the in-universe history. And to help me out with late 20th century or 21st century space flight, I brought out my favorite and yours, the DY-100 Botany Bay. Botany Bay. Botany Bay. Oh no. I remember that when I was a kid. We had HBO. Also a model from, now this is the model from the standard collection, done quite early on now. And the SS Emmette, a slightly later transport, but still early Earth. As you can see, this one has chemical engines, chemical rockets instead of impulse, or at least modern impulse in the back. This is from the opening of Enterprise. And I thought this would go, because this is kind of what came right after the Conestoga. You can kind of tell because it has very similar, layout. Just the Conestoga is much blockier and bulkier. So yeah, before we get to that, I'll revisit the DY-100. Hard to really say when this was in use because of, time stuff, but I can say that this was the first mass-produced and largely used Earth starship. Now, this was not interstellar, it was interplanetary. It mostly flew from Earth to the Moon, or Earth to Mars. It was a fuel tanker, cargo freighter. It could also have a crew of 6 and up to 100 passengers. It had these modules that could be attached on the body. It was powered by traditional chemical engines, or I should say pushed by them, and it was powered by nuclear. And I don't know if it was fission or fusion. I do forget it right now. I apologize. The hull is very submarine-like, or pencil-like. It was about 100 meters long. So this is one of the main passenger transports from Earth to Mars that had a regular run, and one would assume it would start going to Jupiter, because for an early sublight, it actually was quite fast. It could get up to 1/10 the speed of light, which doesn't seem like much, but that is dang fast for just a traditional propulsion. So 1/10 the light speed to Mars is pretty quick. I should have calculated before I did this video. I apologize. These were built in space. They couldn't land, and they would just have modules attach and detach. And of course, it's most famously known for this version here, the SS Botany Bay, that was kind of commandeered by Khan Noonien Singh. And it could also be a sleeper ship. And it could sleep around 84. At least that's what we see from on screen. And obviously it was capable of very long duration voyages. Otherwise you would need to be a sleeper ship, and of course it survived in space in the original series episode Space Seed for hundreds of years. So pretty simple, robust, durable, and just kind of the workhorse. One of the first interplanetary, and I guess, if you count Space Seed, at least interstellar ships, because when it was a sleeper ship, again, 1/10 of the speed of light, if you don't mind sleeping a few decades, you can get somewhere. Not that far, but, you could get to a solar system 4 light years away in about 40 years. 45 if you count for acceleration and deceleration, but still, that's not bad if you have sleep capsules capable of safely containing you for that long, which obviously they did. I think only 12 of Khan's people perished out of 84. Not bad at all. But yeah, this is a neat model from Eaglemoss. But we didn't need to have sublight ships for long, because from Cochrane flew the Phoenix, hitting Warp 1 in 2063. And from that point, rapid progress was made with both the size and speed of warp ships. And the Conestoga was one of the first. Humans soon detected a habitable Class M planet in the Eta Cassiopeia star system, about 20 light years away. And they set about constructing the Conestoga with the latest technology around 2066, using the latest warp engine designs, which Cochrane assisted on himself. And by 2069 it was ready to go. And it embarked, leaving the Sol system with a crew of around 200. It seems like its cruise speed was about warp 1.3, which would indicate it probably had a max speed of about 1.5, not to tax the engines, you know, but for emergency use. As you see, it still has pretty traditional rockets, and that seems to be kind of early human warp travel. Seems like the light speed outstripped the sublight for a little bit, meaning actually maybe impulse was developed or required later. We can assume it was nuclear powered. Had a traditional kind of bridge, very, you know, old school, but still very distinctive Federation type nacelles. Even has a little deflector dish, although you could just say it's comms array in the front. It was designed for a long-term habitation, but not a sleeper ship. It took them a little over 9 years to get to the Class M planet in the Cassiopeia system, which was named Terra Nova. Once there, this ship could land, unlike the DY-100. Although I'm curious, I wonder if it had to jettison its warp nacelles in orbit or not. And once on the planet, it could be disassembled, and the modules used to build the first houses and facilities and meeting halls and provide supplies and whatnot for the colonists. And for the first 5 years, things were going quite well. In fact, they were going so well that Earth was building a second ship of this type, a colony ship, to send to Terra Nova. There was some political fuss over it, but then unfortunately the colony was hit with a bombardment from space, and that's part of the episode of Enterprise as to what happened, but neither here nor there for the class type. The loss of Terra Nova early on would kind of put human design back, and much like happened after the Apollo 1 tragedy and the Challenger disaster, they would take a cold hard look, reevaluate, really upgrade, work on improving propulsion, and that's where the SS Emmette type turns up towards the late 21st century. It is a faster design, about warp 1.8 maximum. So still not breaking the warp 2 barrier, but getting faster. Much more streamlined hull. Still has those chemical engines though. We do know that these were equipped with plasma cannons. It's the first human ship we know was armed, and we know this from the episode In a Mirror Darkly, which, yes, it was the alternative universe, but the ship was in the original, and, you know, humans had met Vulcans. They knew other races existed. Even if you're not going to use plasma weapons as true weapons against other sentients, they're good for space debris and whatnot, just like any other tool. And this would kind of be the replacement for things like the DY-100. They would make routine runs in the solar system and would go to the earliest colonies and outposts outside of the solar system, because getting to 1.8, they could actually get somewhere in a couple of years. And these would still be flying into the 22nd century, and would actually be the basis for newer designs like the Ganges and Neptune classes, commonly called the Warp Delta, as seen in Enterprise. But that's getting into later Starfleet ships. So back to the Conestoga and the feature of this video. Kind of going off non-canon or soft canon sources, some have claimed this to be called the Discovery class, which really does fit. That goes to Star Trek Legacy, the game. And it's funny, I remember the original Star Trek Encyclopedia, and it had a ship in there called the SS Valiant, which is featured in the pilot episode of the original series. And you never saw the ship on screen in that series, but of course you knew a lot about it, that it was an early Earth warp ship, that it was a scout or just, investigation scientific ship, and then it was lost with all hands. And so in the Star Trek Encyclopedia, there was a render of it, black and white render back in the old days, and it looks surprisingly like this ship. Now, in the real world, of course, that was the Valiant, the SS Valiant image that they based the Conestoga off of when they went to do the Enterprise episode. Either way, the correlation is really cool to me. And so I like to think that the Valiant was the same class, or at least a variant, because the time frame fits perfectly. The Valiant was in the 2065 to 2075, roughly, time frame. Understanding that the original series wasn't really too keen on exact dates and stuff, guys, so just because they said it was lost 200 years ago in the episode, they also said some things about this ship in 1996, so have to take a little of that with a grain of salt, even kind of in-universe. So I kind of like to think that maybe the Conestoga was the colonial version of this, and the SS Valiant was the long-range scout, explorer, survey craft. Heck, maybe it was even meant to be the, cargo and visiting to see how Terra Nova was doing. Either way, I think that's a cool callback to one of the earlier periods of Star Trek, the Encyclopedia, back when we didn't have a whole lot except the original series, the films, and we're still in the middle of Next Generation. Even the Valiant has a registry number of 02, meaning this could be 01. I'm just, daydreaming here, but hey, headcanon is fun, right, guys? But I like these early exploration ships, and I think this one just really fits in. It does look clunky compared to later ships, no doubt about it. But at the same time, it does look futuristic. It doesn't look intentionally outdated. So I think they walked that line very well, and it would fit into kind of human Earth NASA design aesthetics. Some have said that having the Conestoga so quickly after Cochrane's flight is just not plausible. I see where they're coming from, but I think that was the point. They were showing just how much meeting the Vulcans and his warp flight had unified Earth, and how when Earth wants to, it can, when it unifies and puts its mind to it, it can really accomplish things and accomplish them very quickly, which has kind of always been the message of Star Trek. Also kind of harkens back to the space race of the 1960s. I mean, if you'd told someone in 1960 that we'd have not just one man, but 2 men, and 4 if you count all of them, on the moon by the end of 1969, they would have thought you were completely mad. And yet we did it because we were motivated, and yeah. So yeah, it just kind of goes into that space pioneering. As to the model itself, it's a neat model. I'm assuming the mail doesn't break the tip off one of yours. And of course, the nacelles are plastic. The body is quite a bit metal, with the sticky out bits being still plastic for obvious reasons. It's a good size too for what it is. Certainly not tiny. Kind of hand-sized. I like this size. It's big enough for detail, but small enough you can fit a lot of them on a shelf. But I like the other ones here too. The Botany Bay was one of the early ones I picked up when I got into these. It's mostly metal. The whole central pencil part, the only things that are plastic are the cargo pods and these really fine engines and stuff in the back. I think even the tower is metal. Yeah, it is. So it's, even though it's really thin, it's actually quite weighty. And this too, the Emmette, the central body, all this is metal with, again, this the warp nacelles and the engines being the plastic. I think this one's neat because it really does harken to the space shuttle as well. And the Venture Star, if you'd like to call it that, from the intro of Enterprise. Anyway, just thought I'd share a neat little acquisition, even if it was tempered a little bit by the small damage. I still like it, and I appreciate Eaglemoss making it right, so yeah. Alrighty guys, hope you guys are having a good start to the new year. If you have any questions or comments, please do post them below, and if you could, like, share, and subscribe. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon next time. Just a quick epilogue between the time I filmed the first part and now. It's been a little over a week, and much to my surprise, my replacement already made it in the mail from Eaglemoss. It kind of surprised me because, one, they warned me that it would be a little while because of the holidays. Perfectly understandable. And two, I didn't get a ship notice. Typically, even with replacements, you get a little note saying they've shipped you something. I guess because of the holidays, it did not happen. Either way, yeah, now I have intact Bussard collector spiky thing on both nacelles, so now the port side is no longer broken, and everything else in the model looks good, including this very small deflector dish and the little spikes, the antennae at the front. So yeah, I will now put this on the shelf and really will enjoy it. I like having, as I said, these early, I'm going to be honest, yeah, Enterprise is a series, but, you know, I actually enjoyed Enterprise pretty alright, but I think a lot of the vessels from it were really cool. They really did a lot with what they had back then, so if nothing else, that is much appreciated. Alright, for real this time, I'm going to sign off. I just thought I would give credit since they got me out a good-looking replacement so quickly. I will catch you very soon next time.